thing. Let me record this. All right, guys. So good morning, good evening, depending of the time of the day or the night that you are accessing this recording. If you are not live, but I do have people in my live session, and we are going to have a good time. And just a quick one. If you remember, I did praise quite a lot Easy for sending us a tutorial. Thank you so much, Easy, for that. But I would like for Learning Unit 3, because remember that we only meeting on a bi-weekly basis. So we don't have actually so much time to to work together, if you think about that. And that's why you're having this pre-recordings that have been made available to you. You have actually past papers that have been resolved for you. You have some help tool or visual aids that were provided to you, so that when you're going through the actual learning units, you don't see it as plain and boring without anything you see to help you somehow. So but remember that this is collaboration way, a participative way that we are working online. Is that contrary to the contact space, where a student could basically sit through the semester. When you were joining online, we told you that you need to be proactive. So it does require you to be very proactive, because of the chances, the amount of time that we have to meet together, as you see. So obviously, like I said, we are not limited by the fact that you can reach out to me at any time, and you have access to that. So if you are a student and you are struggling somehow with this module, and you're not reaching enough to your lecturer, that is on you. You have to know that that is on you. And so and I'm telling you, you don't need to fail the module to wake up, you see. And I can tell you, there are many repeat students, and I've seen them doing so well. I might even be sure that the highest mark that we had for this a TLT one was by a repeat student. So I don't want you to repeat the module to to wisen up, and so now to and to begin engaging more. Engage now. You don't need to repeat the module. Engage as much as possible. If you see, so here is the rule of thumb. If you see that your level is very low, you are struggling really to keep up with the pace, or somehow, for some reasons, you hate numbers, which I don't understand, which is not a good thing, by the way. So if that's your case, so I suggest to you that you engage with me as often as possible, so that I'm sure that the student that I'm helping is actually studying. So it is a pleasure, for example, to have top-notch student like Easy and many other of you who reach out to me, ask questions and all that. So at least I know you are engaging with the material. So then we can work. I would not work with the student who say, well, I'm confused about everything. Well, that could be laziness. Be careful. Or or you might not be having, not that you're lazy, but it might be that you're not putting enough time in your schedule to study, to actually study. So guys, you let me know if you feel that you're not getting enough help. But I will tell you, for yourself, engaging with other modules, that you are getting really enough help. But obviously, like I said, there is no substitute to actually sitting down with your learning unit and studying. So that, unfortunately, it is what it is, you see. So it is tertiary level education. Ensure that you do your reading, you actually following, you see. So I've seen many students actually do well simply by following. So just being on the page. They might not be studying heavily, but they are on up to date with what we're doing so that you know you're not missing out anything. All right. So guys, I trust this is clear. And by the way, I will make sure that you are actually engaging because I'm going to require each one of you to send me a tutorial of a particular exercise for learning unit 3 or 4 that you are going to take, not an exercise that has been solved in class or that you have in your actual material, but just an exercise that you're going to take from our extra learning unit, right? So you take one exercise just like Easy did last time. You take one specific exercise that you're going to solve by yourself, or that you are going to reach out to me. You have attempted, you have tried, but you have not been able to solve it. We can work together. um hey, that's a good thing. For example, Easy last time we were able to meet together, solve a particular exercise, and then she basically created an audio, a tutorial that she sent to all of you so that all of you can benefit. All right. And by the way, that question will definitely come back in your exam. So it was quite exactly easy. If you can get into a video, also if you can do, it should be relatively easy. And let me tell you actually how you could do it. You could come into the open room on our blackboard. So all of you have access to the open room. That open room will allow you to basically record your screen. So if some of you are professionals working within a company and you are using Teams, use Teams, because by the way, next year we are all moving to Teams. So Blackboard will be phased out and we're going to move to Teams. So if you have Teams, use Teams. Or if you have Zoom, use Zoom to record yourself. That's wonderful. Yes, that's wonderful. So, or if you can also use basically our Blackboard in the open room to go inside and basically to just record a video. And that will be the tutorial. So I want to see everybody engaging, because one thing, again, I'm repeating for the very last time, that I will not accept is that a student is reaching out to me who is basically saying, I'm not understanding anything. So I need to hear specifics, like I said, not general innuendos, specifics as to which material, which section, which example, which exercise you're struggling with, which concept you're struggling with. Then let's work that way. Then I know we are on the same page, right? So it's going to be fun. Don't worry. And yeah, so one of the things that we're going to do, let's jump into quickly into the actual TLT one, which I think, remember again, if you've done very well on TLT one, please don't go over your head thinking that, you're good to go, you have mastered everything. The exam was, remember again, the test, sorry, was open book. So don't don't get a big head. Let me put it that way. All right. So be humble, realize that this was open book, and plus, not everything is examined. So when you are studying, just like you are tackling every single module, have your own notes that you're going to create. Your lecturer is providing you some notes, but I want you to change those notes and to create your own notes. What does it mean? You can add to the notes that I'm providing you. So you can have specific examples that you've worked at, so that when it comes time for revision, you don't need to study. You are basically just going through some of the highlights in your notes, stuff that you need to remember. You see, so that's quite very important, because if you're going to study close to the exam, it's going to be very tough, very difficult for you to pass the module. But study, create your notes, and you are going just to revise close to the exam. So I trust this is clear. Another tip, remember, another tip for you. Right. Okay. So we do have question one, and quite interestingly, they provided you with with multiple choices, which is very rare. But remember, they are trying to make you acquainted with, I suppose, the final exam, because in the final exam, you do get some multiple choices. But remember, again, the final exam is a very long exam. So it's 3 hours. It's 180 marks. It's quite, and when I say you need to be well prepared for that exam, you need to be well prepared. I've seen students literally writing nothing. So you need to understand what you are doing, right? Okay. So the first question was basically, like we said, multiple choice. Finance can be defined. I've provided this to you. I'm sure you've gone through. I've highlighted question 1.4 because this it's quite a good a good question where we could discuss, because there are those multiple questions that a bit tricky. They trick you a little bit. So which of the following may help eliminate the agency problem, you see? So you could be tempted to take any of them, or you could actually even give some reasons for it. But as you can see, the share options used as a management compensation is the actual eliminator of the agency problem, right? So you remember, again, through your theory, you know the agency problem, you know the conflict between the management on one side as well as the shareholders. Obviously, you know the best interest of the shareholders need to be upholded, and management is only an agent on behalf of the shareholders, as you are quite well aware, right? So we saw that there were certain things, unfortunately, that exacerbated the problem. So share options is quite interesting, because only when the management perform in accordance with the objectives of the business, then share options are provided. So for the rest, I think it's quite straightforward, right? Um, I think this one also, I've highlighted it because this could be close. I've seen, I myself could be tempted to say that it is an increase in share price and earning per share, or yeah, increase in share price. So definitely increase in share price is there. Cash dividend is there. Oh yeah, easy. You said, see, I would have said also that. I would have said also that. Right. But remember, again, if you see that one of the item, like cash dividend, shareholders receive realizable returns through cash dividend, that is true, because it is the actual dividend. It's the actual dividend. That's the money that's the shareholder receives. So when you're looking at the cash dividend, it's one of them. One could be tempted, but you know the share price. You know that the share price is very indicative. So once you see part of the answer is in between, so it does make sense that it is the share price and the cash dividend. Remember, again, give it a bit of reflection before you write the final answer. And also, obviously, the last one could be a tricky one, because you could say a code of conduct. I've seen some say code of conduct. But remember, again, go back to your theory. You could see that ethics itself, there is a code of ethics. So if you say a code of conduct and a code of ethics will be similar, but we are talking here about ethics itself. What is ethics itself? So definitely, then it becomes a philosophical question. All right. So that was about it. All right, so I will explain to you quickly what's going on here. So whatever you are seeing here, it doesn't mean that I want you to exactly give me that for you to get marks. And sometimes when I write 1 mark, it's not to say that every single little point gives you 1 mark. It could be because it is at the discretion of your lecturer to look to see. Sometimes I could say the shareholder plus the definition of this shareholder, what is concerned about could be 1 mark. You see, so please don't get carried um, by what you are seeing. Thus, I'm just providing an example because you need at least minimum to have an example, right? And plus, if you see what I've provided you, I did not reference it because it's just a quick example that I'm providing to you. But you know that when you're writing, especially for your TLT1 and your TLT2, you need to properly reference. And remember again, the idea of referencing, which many people get confused, but I was the a plagiarism officer for the entire Varsity College Online. So you are definitely dealing with somebody. Other lecturers will give you a pass. I won't be that one because I was a plagiarism officer. So remember again, but I will make it simple for you. Referencing, this is how you get more marks by referencing. By referencing, you are demonstrating actually that you've been learning, you've been studying. You see, so basically you are showing me that you are credible in what you're giving me. So the idea is not to reference everything. Part of your answer needs to have something that you have sourced because, by the way, you're not an expert in this subject, you're not a known author, so we don't expect you to know these things by magic. We know that you learned it from somewhere, and that will be your textbook, for example. That will be your primary source, right? So when you are writing something that is coming from the textbook, but you must also remember that you can't give direct quotes. Otherwise, you're going to have to take so much direct. What I'm seeing some of you are doing is copying from the textbook, which I'm saying to you, remember again, this needs to be a skill. Learn to properly paraphrase so that you're putting it in your words, but you reference because you are saying, I borrowed this idea from the textbook, which gives you more marks. So I trust that that is clear to you. So actually, referencing is not giving you too much work. Referencing is actually how you earn more marks. So I trust that that's clear. And you don't need to worry much because you know that you have just to do that in TLT1 and in TLT2. When it comes to the actual exam, you don't need to reference anything, right? So that's I trust that that's quite clear, right? So an entrepreneur, obviously, it is in your textbook, and guys, go beyond your textbook. What we're saying, we're not saying just give us your textbook. We are saying go beyond your textbook. So this is what you could basically say, Freeman and all. According to Freeman and all, I get this definition of an entrepreneur, but according to another source, I get this definition. And then you can do a synthesis of both. And that synthesis is no longer, you don't need to reference because that's you. That's how simple it is. All right. So I want you also to use that according to Freeman and all. And so your best friend needs to be the referencing guide. Okay. Please always have the referencing guide open when you are writing a test, an assignment. Have your referencing guide open and see how you're referencing, right? Okay, so I repeat again, go beyond your textbook. All right, so it was quite simple to for the stakeholders. You know the stakeholders, right? And most of you, beside few problems, right? Okay, let me tell you what exactly is the problem. Is that some of you are not reading the question thoroughly. They say that you need to name. So every time you name, for example, shareholder, creditor, employee, you saw that I gave you a mark, right? So you name those five, but for each stakeholder, briefly explain why they would be interested in the financial statement of the organization. So that's part two. Why would this shareholder be interested in the financial statement? Part three, why the financial manager needs to consider the stakeholder, that particular stakeholder in the decision making process. And some of you did it brilliantly. You can create a table where you are taking three parts of the question together. But again, remember what I was saying is that sometimes you see the reason why I provide you this, you say, okay, why do you provide us this? Is to show you this is a five marks question. This is a 15 marks question. See, it needs to be more. So I, I was not kidding when I was telling you that someone is writing a page for a 5 mark question and is writing a small paragraph for a 15 mark question. That doesn't make any sense. So look again at how many marks it is. There needs to be a strategy before you tackle your paper, especially your final paper. You need to have a strategy to say, by the way, how many marks are these questions? So look at the marks and start with the question that has the most marks and that you can tackle easy. All right? The easy questions, you can do them and divide your time. Divide your time. Say, in the first hour of my exam, I'm going to tackle this long questions that have a lot of marks. So let me make sure that I maximize the marks there. And then the easy question, I can do it in the last hour, for example, because I know them, I can do them quite easily. So what does this mean? It just means that you need to have a strategy. Don't just start your paper, you don't know where you're going. So that's how you're going to end up writing too much where you should have written quite little. Okay? So strategy. Strategy. So, and that's why we're providing you a TLT, is to give you that idea of a strategy, right? Okay, so question number two. Guys, I'm taking my break now. Do you have any questions? If you want to unmute yourself, you have a particular question, let's talk about it now. Remember, this is not a one-man show. All good on your side, easy. Anyone else? Are you all good? Does this make sense to you? Are you fine? Batswana, Esther. Question one was good. Yes, Laika. Wonderful. Wonderful. How would we reference in the table? So every how do you call cell of your table needs to have a proper reference. I see some of you what you've been doing. When I say paragraph referencing is being used, but I know is for you to prevent you to reference too much. I know quite well why you're using paragraph referencing. But the problem with the paragraph referencing and why it is improper or incorrect referencing is that we don't know what sentence within your paragraph that's because we are not telling you to give us only what the textbook says. That's why we ask you to paraphrase. That's the first thing, because we want you to be able also to be able to give us your own synthesis, your own way of understanding. So we don't want you to provide word for word. So there needs to be a part where you take from source one, source two, you write your own conclusion, or you write your own interpretation, or you draw some um, similarities. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's quite important. So you can take from a source or from two sources or three sources. So most of the time I always tell my student two or three, so that it's going to be easy for you when you're writing to look at the similarities, to look at the differences, and that's where you can add your own parts there. So, but we need to see which one you sourced from A, which one you sourced from B, and which one is you. So that's quite important, right? So I hope that this is clear. Let me check here. Yeah, so for example, look at a sentence. You are talking about a particular sentence. If you're finishing a sentence which is a particular idea that you are presenting in that sentence, reference that, because if you source it from somewhere, reference that part. Okay? And if you have to continue, like you finish a sentence, but there is also some, you're starting a new sentence, but that second sentence was borrowed from the same source, then refer to that source. Say, according to the same authors. You get what I'm saying? It's quite simple. Say, according to the same authors. So in that case, you don't need to write the actual reference. Some of you hate to write that reference, you see, in brackets, or, but you can, and it was rare. I knew that majority of you did not even paraphrase. Why? Because few of you said according to Freeman and all, this and that, and then at the end you put in uh parenthesis 2023 or 2024. What if the start of my paragraph is my opinion, and then at the bottom is the specific source? Then make it clear that you're gonna paraphrase, meaning that after you've written your own opinion at the beginning, then you say, this opinion is also validated by Freeman and all, who says this. That's the use of paraphrasing. So I hope that that's clear. But again, remember, you have these examples in, yeah, makes sense, right? But you have these examples in your guide anyway. In your referencing guides, you have. I know, guys, this is this is this is a numbers uh, uh, um, uh, um, module. Yeah, but there is some theory. Remember, that's finance. Finance is not all about calculations. There need to be the logical part, the theory part, and the calculation part. And that's the reason why we basically want you to know this, all right? Easy, yeah, unmute yourself, Easy.
So you would rather us do in-text referencing as opposed to just
Yeah,
putting the referencing like at the end of the paragraph?
absolutely. So that's
Okay,
actually what is required from you guys in text
perfect.
referencing. So the
Okay.
rest, paragraph referencing and all this kind of thing, that's not referencing, by the way. So, but you don't need to worry. As you can see, there was only one person who was sent for plagiarism, because there was not a single reference, and that I'm sorry, unfortunately. But if I was so much about punishing you guys, I would be sending half of the class to redo the assignments so that you can. But I didn't do that. So that, because that's not the purpose. So I would rather deduct few marks, but so as to show you that it's costing you marks for not doing this. Okay, guys. But hey, let's move on. It's not a big issue. I'm sure that for TLT2, you guys are gonna smash it. And especially, guys, go back through this recording and specifically hear what I said. You are getting this from a former plagiarism officer, right? So there's nobody who's more well positioned as I am to tell you about referencing. It's quite simple, but that's how you earn more marks. You see, I would give extra marks if a question is 5 marks. I am willing to give plus 2 more marks above the 5 marks for a student who's using a lot of referencing, who's using multiple sources. I tell you, I'm willing to give you more marks. So you would have your paper, and it will say on your paper plus 5 marks or plus 10 marks, because you've shocked me by the way you've used multiple sources. And the highest score did exactly that. Use multiple referencing all the time, two or three for each question, two or three. You see, and that student probably is a repeat student and knows about this, right? Okay, so guys, I'm sure that referencing will never be a problem again. Okay, So we move on. Let's move on to question number 2. The reason why I did this quickly is basically, like I say again, you need to learn this thing, to draw from the actual table what you need for the questions that are required of you. And guys, nobody requires you to start by question number 1. So, for example, for question 2, you don't have to start by the first question as long as you number your questions. So if you say number 6, I will know that this is number 6. So, but I'm showing you from the actual table how I'm able to get the numbers and quickly make a calculation, right? From the actual table. It's even way easier for you this way, all right? But again, um, kudos for all of you. Wonderful. I could see the calculations. There was only one student who was getting the calculations wrong. I don't know why. They will write the correct formula, they will write the correct numbers, and that student will get the number. You know who you are. And I wrote on your paper to say, what on earth is wrong with your calculator? Yes, I did write that. Because remember, you know how much feedback I provide you. So there is a problem there. So when I'm seeing a student who's doing the right thing, putting in the right numbers, but getting the wrong answer. So basically, that might be fractions. You're struggling with calculating. So go back again to the course that we've provided about, these basics, right? Basic numeracy skills, right? So it might be that you are struggling with basic numeracy skills, but that was only one student. The majority of you did quite well, and well done, right? So I am adding as I'm going. What also I wanted you to give me, it's not only the trends. I want you to give me beyond the trend. What does gross profit mean? What does it indicate, a gross profit? For example, like I put here, it is the ability for a company to sell product cost effectively. That's a very important thing because I understand that the ratio. You can interpret the ratio. So again, not a big issue. If you've missed out, remember for your exam, if your ratios come, always explain what the ratio means, right? You know that the net profit, it's how efficiently the company manages its cost, because that's quite important, that part. The cost in order obviously to generate profit, very important. Add those type of things and reference them, because you're getting that part from the textbook. Just put a reference there because you got it from the textbook. That's also one of the things, right? But by the way, I was very generous here. I didn't punish anybody who did not put a reference, but yeah, I didn't punish anyone. So you don't need actually to put the actual definition, but you can put a paraphrase of the definition. And by the way, guys, I tell you, I'm going to add more marks to you guys. If you don't believe me, okay, I've given my word. Just take this recording, bring back this recording for TLT2. I'm going to give you extra marks over and above the marks that was 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 uh, uh, attributed to that question. So I will give you over and above when you are properly paraphrasing, and but you need to explain what this ratio is, because yes, you can calculate the ratio, but do you understand the theory about the ratio? All right. Okay. Obviously, I want to move quickly to this part. This part is important because remember, they want you to be able, and this is what you should not miss. And I want to give you this skill before we move on. The skill here is the skill. They want you to be able to look at the balance sheet at an income statement, right? You can see a balance sheet here, a statement of financial position. Remember the statement of financial position I've told you? It's basically like taking a picture. It's like a picture at a particular point in time, right? And I told you that this is more like a movie, right? This is more like uh, uh, um, a small clip, right? Because this one covers, what does it cover? It covers the entire year. So we know if we are talking about February, ended February. So this statement of comprehensive income will cover from the year, the previous year, from the 29th or the 1st of March of 2023 to the the 29th February 2024. That's how wonderful is this statement of comprehensive income. So it captures all that period. And follow carefully what I'm telling you. So you know that. And that's the reason why, by the way, we calculate an average. Why do we calculate an average? Because we have for 2023 and 2024, we know that the statement of financial position just gives you two pictures at specific point in time. So in order to get for the period, we need to have an average. And I trust you understand that. But we want you to be able to quickly, by looking at those two statements, give us, understand what is going on with this company. All right, guys, we want you to tell us what is going on with this company. And you remember that you calculated the gross profit, and you could see that there was the gross profit. By the way, guys, was the gross profit above the average, the industry average? It was not. It was below the industry average, but it's still a very good gross profit. Look at 54%. It's a very good gross profit. And it is an improvement. So the trend is there. It is an improvement. But when you're looking at the fact that it was below average, yes, keep it in mind, right? When you're looking at the net profit, you could see that the net profit went slightly below the previous year, but it was above the industry average, right? So you can write all that, yes, but we don't want you to isolate this from the examination of the entire company, right? Now, what happened to you when you were doing these calculations is that many of the rest of the the ratios were doing quite well. So there was a slight, they could do better for profitability, because remember, guys, this is green solar. It is a technology company that sells technology. So there's high profit margins. All right. But remember that the other indicators were quite good. They were quite good. So we wanted you to examine this company and to give us something that is out of the box. That was wonderful. So you write the ratios, and then there was a question specific to this company, right? What could be improved? So as simple as that. So you could see that all the other ratios had a good indication, but the big problem that you had was for the trade, the trade, what is it again, the trade creditors. That's where the problem was, right? So when you did your calculation, you could see that it was way over. Wait a minute, that's quite strange. This company is receiving from its debtors quite early. Why are they pushing so far to repay their creditors? That's basically was the question. And some of you have done it and you did it brilliantly. Kudos to you. Then I know you are definitely getting a skill as as entrepreneurs. And I want for the rest of you to see this. So see which ratio was the biggest problem. Start there. That's what I mean. Start with the ratio that was the biggest problem. So for this question here, 2.8, the company would like to improve their financial ratios during the upcoming financial year. You would start with the ratio that was the most problematic. And I've provided to you a picture here because there is certain things that you needed to go outside the box. What are those things? Is that, wait a minute, why, for when it comes to their creditors, because we took loans, why are we taking so long to repay them? And if you check just one thing, there is, when we ask you to provide further further examination. So basically this means further examination for you. Do you get it? So you can use extra ratios. So one of the ratios, because it's trade creditors, your creditors, you're looking at the financing, the debt financing, and you know that there is a ratio like the debt to equity ratio. You know it, you've studied it. So use such a ratio to see, by the way, how much debt is this company? So here is a close explanation that I've written quickly to you. Despite having favorable trade data collection period and favorable liquidity ratio, why is the trade creditor settlement period kept longer? At the risk of jeopardizing the good relationship with their creditors. By the way, today's session for Learning Unit 3 only covers that question. So TLT 1, this last question would usher into Learning Unit 3 because we're going to talk about that, about the fact that the settlement period, the trade creditor settlement period, and the data, uh, 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 the data settlement period. Right? So check the net profit, which showed a slight decline. Yes, that was a bit of an obvious, but a very tiny issue. It was not a big issue, but it was a tiny issue, right? This gives you an indication of some operating expense might be an issue. So if they went a little bit down, it means that there's some expenses, right? Because remember, your revenue minus your cost of sales, your gross profit, and then you have your expenses. So if the net profit was not favorable, it means that there might be something that increased there among the expenses. So now you need to do your further investigation, look at the debt to equity, and what you would realize is that in 2023, the debt to equity was 10 to 1. It means that for 1 rand that was coming from the equity, from the shareholder, 10 rand was coming from debtors. So this is a highly geared, highly indebted ratio. But from 2023 to 2024, look, it became 2 to 1. So now we understand why the company was taking longer to repay its short-term debtors is because they focused more on long term. Basically, if you have so much debt up to 90%, so it was 90% geared. So the total geared ratio was 90%. That's quite a lot. So maybe the company was too risky. They wanted to decrease that long-term risk. So they privilege more repaying these long-term debts. Does that make a little bit of sense? So it was basically, but you are not punished in any way if you didn't answer this. But this is a good way to usher you into Learning Unit 3. You need to be able to take these ratios, all of them, into one picture. So these ratios are puzzles of a picture, different parts of the puz- different parts or puzzles of one picture. So don't take them in isolation. Look at the full picture. Does that make sense? And what I would ask you, the indication was there. Look at where the indication was there. Oh, sorry, where the indication was. It was about the creditors. So you will know that there is a problem here. The creditors. What is the creditor? It's our lenders, the people to whom we borrowed money, right? So then you need to say, let me look at the gearing ratio. Guys, remember, there was no question on gearing ratios, but in your exam, you'll find the gearing ratio. So you might have done well. That doesn't mean you should not prepare and understand what is gearing ratio. What I will ask you for all of you, guys, go take the debt to equity ratio and the total gearing ratio. Practice it. So see if you get the same thing as I. But I was able to quickly look at the long-term debt. Here it is. I was able to look at the long-term debt, which is the non-current liability, divided by the equity to find the debt to equity ratio. Quickly, I just took this one. Do you see it? Sorry, this one divided by this one. As simple as that, as quick as it is. So guys, remember, this is how fast we want you to be. Know these ratios, understand them. This one divided by this one for 2023, and then I took this one quickly divided by this one. For the total gearing ratio, you have to take the long-term debt divided by the capital employed, which is the long-term debt divided by the debt, uh, long-term debt, long-term liability or long-term debt plus equity. So get these ratios in your mind and understand them. So you would get an indication that this company is highly geared, highly leveraged. It means that there's so much debt that they are using that the company is too risky. Other investors who would look at this would not want to invest in this company because it's too much. And that's why the reason why they decided to decrease this long-term ratio, because it poses a risk. All right. So that was paper number one. Any question? Makes sense. Okay.